Hello everyone, it's Kat and I'm back today and I'm living my best life. Why am I living my best life? Because I've probably discovered my favorite palette of the whole year, if not the whole next couple of years and past couple of years, because I'm obsessed. And this should have been a collaboration, I'm just going to say, because this is me in a palette. So Glaminatrix Cosmetics, which is an Australian indie brand, are releasing a brand new nude-ish palette. If you're familiar with my channel, you'll know that the last palette that I was obsessed with was the Glaminatrix Nearly Natural palette. This is stunning. I still love it. It's got similar colors to what we're about to see, but like different style. I feel like this is the new one is this revamped. So if you missed out on the Nearly Natural palette and you were crying yourself to sleep every night, which I don't blame you because it is stunning, there is something that will replace it and make you feel happy, and that is the Barely Basic palette. Now I love this packaging. It's this beautiful sort of shimmery copper gorgeousness. It is the same format as their last Pretty in Pastel palette. This is obviously a pastel themed palette, but it's got the 2 rows of shimmers, 3 rows of mattes, and there's sort of color stories going down the columns. This is the same thing, just with that sort of nude-ish vibe. So are you ready for it? Are you ready for it? Are you ready for my new favorite palette? Get ready. It is this baby. So it is stunning. I love all these colors. I will use them all. So far, I'm wearing this column, which is a look that you'll see later in this video after the swatches. But we have a sort of mauvey row, a sort of burnt coppery orange row, the greeny mossy row, which is on my eyes. And then we have what looks a bit grey in comparison, but in reality, it's like a cooler tone brown row. They have sort of different formulas. So we have toppers. These do shift different colors. Pink, orange, aquarish, and then like a yellowy greeny. So they will transform whatever you put underneath them, or you can just wear them on their own. Then we have this beautiful sparkly metallic formula, which is my favorite formula from Glaminatrix. They have these in sort of single formulas in past palettes. They are absolutely stunning. I'm obsessed. Then we have 3 rows of mattes, which in the color story, they just increase in depth. So you can sort of use these bottom ones to really have a smoky, really grungy look, or you can have like a liner with them, whatever you want to do. You can sort of go day to night and everything in between. I love these colors. I love this format. It is stunning. What is also funny is the shade names of these. So this is, it vibes with the sort of basic theme, like the Barely Basic. And we've got things like outfit of the day, get ready with me, hashtag viral, follow. I love this line because it is like, comment, subscribe, and share, which we've all heard that. So I think that's quite funny. There's also things like leggings, pumpkin spice, scrunchie, and girl dinner, all things that I appreciate. I love this. It is fun. So what you'll see in this video is swatches of the whole palette, the look that I've got on today. So using the green column, I'm going to be checking back with different looks per column, and then 1 or 2 hopefully where I mix it up and I can show you how you can mix and match the shades. If you were interested in checking out this palette, it is launching on the 4th of August or the 3rd of August if you're not in Australia. And I'll have the rest of the launch details where you can buy it, the price, everything like that in the description box, as well as my code. I do have a code. This was sent to me for review. I will tell you my honest opinion of it. I've been a big fan of Glaminatrix for a long time, and if you want to use my code for 10% off, go for your life. If you don't want to, you don't have to. Pay full price. I don't mind. Do whatever you want to do. But let's get on to the review because I'm excited. So there are 20 shades and each of them contain around 1 gram of product. So it's 20 grams in total. I'm going to swatch them down so we can see the color story. This shade here is also like a duochrome, so it shifts different colors into different lights. I'll show you some footage of that on the screen. I'm just doing some small swatches because I can't fit 20 on my arm, but you can see that this is a beautiful sort of iridescence. I'll show you in different lighting. OOTD, so outfit of the day. We've got a beautiful mauvey one called hashtag. Oh, it's so sparkly and stunning. I just love it. So it's got this mauvey base. There we go. It's got this gorgeous sort of silvery, beautiful sparkle to it. It is gorgeous. Leggings is next. So this is a cooler toned sort of crease color for me. I love it. We're getting into some more purpley mattes at the moment. So we've got Like and Holy Grail. So we're getting more mauvey territory. Really soft and lovely. and a dark purple, which I'm obsessed with. These dark purples, they're so versatile. They can deep up warm looks, cool looks. I just think those sort of plum shades, underrated. Love it. All right, next column is the orangey one. This first shade, which does look like it's got a bit of an orangey shift. I'll do it down here. So we can see, again, it looks, there you go. You can see that beautiful orange. So it is that color shifty. That's FYP. I think it's supposed to stand for you page. And then we've got Viral, which is this gorgeous copper, which is like the color of the packaging. Rose gold copper. Stunning. Pumpkin Spice. Yeah. We're getting some basic names here, which I like. I appreciate. And that's definitely a pumpkin-y spice color. Getting deeper, we've got Comment and Review. I should have done my nails for this. This Review one looks a little bit sheerer, but you can build it up. It's a beautiful sort of warm dark brown. Here we go, my perfect green column in the world. We've got a Get Ready With Me, which is this minty, there you go, it's got like a minty sheen to it. We've got Engagement, which is not the getting married engagement. This is an interesting one. It's got little specks of what looks like silver in it, so you probably can't see it there, but it just looks really twinkly because it's this sort of mossy green with like this extra sort of pretty sparkle in it. This I'm obsessed with. This reminds me of Mochi from the Gemini palette. I probably can throw out the Gemini palette now, which I'm very happy with. This is called Scrunchy. I love it, and I wear scrunchies these days, so I'm back into it. Then we've got Subscribe, which is more of a sort of moss green. This is more sort of murky chartreuse mustard, in my opinion. And then we've got Haul, which is a beautiful brownie green. And I think Glaminatrix have been watching my videos because this is all I need. Goodbye, Gemini palette. I now have my Glaminatrix beautiful murky green trio. Oh, this is a me palette. I feel like they got in my head and just made a perfect palette for me. Thank you, Glaminatrix. I love you very much. We've got DIY. This is the last column, which is sort of like the, what would you call it? Like a greige column. It's very pretty. This one looks very green. So this one looks more blue. This one looks more green. I'll hopefully be able to catch the shift in different lighting soon. This Follow shade is my just everyday sparkle. I will put that all over my body if I can. This I would say is a neutral nude. So it just is like not warm, not cool. It's beautiful and neutral. And then you can cool it up with these mattes or warm it up with the sort of pumpkin spicy kind of row. This one is an off-white, which I think is appropriate. I think it suits this palette. I think you can mix it and sort of lighten shades, which is great. And then we go deeper with Share, which is again that sort of, it's a brown, it's like, I would call it like a putty shade. I love it. And Looks. So this is definitely the coolest. I'd call this a cool brown. It's not grey. Again, this palette is made for me because I love cool tone browns. I wouldn't say this is verging on grey. I think for some people's skin tone, this will read a little bit grey. Slightly different lighting, so hopefully you can see the different colour shifts of those sort of topper shades. This one is more, it almost has like a purple base and it goes to this sort of yellowy green. This is sort of like a translucent base and it has this sort of aqua bluey green. And then we have almost like a white base and this beautiful sort of shifty pink. And then almost like a bluey base with an orange shift. So these are very stunning. Just which one do I use today? I don't know. I do have a bit of a base. This is just a Natasha Denona eyeshadow base, but it's a little bit tacky. It's been on for a while. I might actually go into Girl Dinner, which is that sort of off-white, just to set my crease a little bit, because I think if I'm going in with this sort of a lot of greens, I just need to be a little bit prepped. I'm going to start with Scrunchy, just lightly in the crease, which is that beautiful sort of mossy chartreuse murky green. Very pretty. I'm then taking Engagement on a brush. This might be better applied. You can see how twinkly and sparkly that is. Hang on, let's turn this down. It is gorgeous. This might be a bit better applied with your finger. It's it's not flaky. It's just that if you sort of move your brush in it too much, you can sort of kick up a bit of sparkle. Look how intense that is. So I'm just going to tap that on and tap that on there just to make my life a little bit easier and just make sure there's no sort of glitter fallout or whatnot. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to blend that. So there you go, easy. You can see that this is a little bit more cool tone than the crease, but that's totally fine. I'm going in with Subscribe, which is the second darkest green. I'm just going to be deepening the outer corner. I'm going to run this on my lower lash line as well. The shade Hall is a lot darker, and I'm just going to use this almost as a liner, but just as like a really blended out smudgy liner. So just a bit of definition. You can see that this is a lot, it's like a smoky green. It's very pretty. I feel like I'm wearing too much blush for this look. Oh well. We're looking a little bit more lifted, but I'm also looking a little bit messy. So I'm just getting a different brush that I had with the lighter green, and I'm just sort of tidying that up. Just a little bit. This look is stunning. It applied really easily, no problems there. Everything blended beautifully. There's not like a lot of fallout. I think fallout is just dependent on how you apply it. Like tap off your brush, maybe the glittery shades apply with your finger first and then blend, so sort of tap it on. But everything's beautiful. I'm going to use the shade Get Ready With Me, which is that top one. This is super intense. I might have to just tap this down a little bit so it's not so full on, but I want to see how this applies like as a topper. Oh, so instantly it just adds this sort of like emerald green shift. I sort of want it to be like a halo eye sort of vibe. So I'm just putting it on the center. Whoa, it's so pretty. I know you can see the green on camera, but it's not as intense as you can see in person. Like in person, it is vibrant. Because I want a halo eye type effect, I am also going to be putting it on my lower lash line just a little bit, taking it slow so I don't get sort of fallout. I'm actually in love with this green shade over the top of the dark shade. It just has this really vibrant, beautiful emerald sort of look to it. I just touched up my lip. I put a little bit of brown eyeliner just on my waterline and on my tight line. I didn't want it to sort of impede the beautiful green on my lid, so I've defined my eyes that way. I also put a bit more mascara on, and now I feel like an absolute vixen. All right, look number 2, and I'm obviously going for that first column, the Mauve column. I've used all shades, and I also compared the main sort of shimmer shade, this one here, to one of my favorite shades in the Nearly Natural palette, which is I think called Nearly Natural. This one here, which I thought looked similar. They have sort of similar textures because they have like a sort of nudie colored shimmer, and then they have that beautiful silver sparkle, which I don't know if you can see. It's capturing the light beautifully. So it's got this mauvey sort of shimmer, and then it's just like when it catches the light, it looks silver. I've actually compared the two, so they are actually quite different. There's no sort of double up shades from what I can understand between the two palettes. I think at the end of this review, I will do a full palette comparison. So if you own the first one, you can see if you need the second one. All right, I thought I'd zoom in more so you can see this a bit closer. I use that iridescent topper shade just in the inner corner here, so like on the first third. And you can see that when it's not catching the light, it looks nude, but then when it catches a light, it has this beautiful sort of pink color. And then I went in with that shimmery shade that's got that beautiful silver sort of sparkle throughout it, which is gorgeous. So again, it looks mauve. When it catches the light, it's got this beautiful silver effect. And it is stunning. You can see that it just like lights up the eye. I use a lighter matte on the inner corner, the middle matte on the outer corner, same as in the crease. And then I use the darker shade as a liner. You can see it's very, very pigmented. Creates a beautiful sort of berry liner. I could also smoke up the look very easily with that dark shade. It's just that it's the morning, so I thought that's a bit much. But that is this color here with that sort of iridescence is, I love it. It's beautiful. This eyeshadow is so pretty as I just sort of walk around and I just see how it's catching the light. What is that? Yeah, gorgeous. Love it. I love this look. It is a lot more cool toned than I expected. So This is obviously the last column, the sort of greyish column, and I think this is gorgeous. I think there's some really beautiful shades in here. Very sort of this would add depth and dimension to like all the colors. Like if you wanted to deepen up any of these colors, you just add these and it adds like a shadow. It's Friday morning at like 9:15, so I didn't want to go too bold, but you can see how you could go really bold with this. So what I did was I put the shimmer shade, like that sort of grey shimmer shade, all over the lid, so you've got that beautiful sort of twinkle, almost gives like a wet look sort of shimmer, which is really gorgeous. I really wanted to see the topper shade on its own, so I concentrated that on the lower lash line and in the inner corner, so that's almost got this like frosty, slightly yellow vibe to it. I think if I turn down the brightness, maybe you can see it a bit more, but there you go. Then I used all three mattes. I blended that sort of up higher just to sort of clean up this area. I used this shade in the crease and on my lower lash line. Then I used a darker shade almost as like a smudged out liner, so I've got no liner on today. I put it in the outer corner, mainly at the lash line, and sort of flicked it out a little bit. So at some point I want to play with like a really dark matte with a topper over the top to see how it looks, but today's not that day. But you can see how beautiful this is, and it is very cool toned. So I think if you're very cool toned, this will still look a little bit neutral on you, but for me, who is overall quite neutral in coloring, this is quite cool toned and really beautiful. So super basic look, but very easy to do, no fallout, no issues, blendability is great. All right, a bit of a surprise here, and I thought I'd demonstrate something. So on my eyes, I have all mattes from one of the columns. Now it is the orangey kind of column, but you can see on the eyes, it looks a lot more brown. So even though I originally thought that this was going to be more of just a general brown, like a cool tone brown, I think it is quite greyish on me, and I thought this was going to be more sort of orange, but it's actually quite brown on me, which is interesting. So what I did was I used all three. I've just sort of blended them in, and then I'm going to apply these two on camera so you can see how they apply. I've also decided to swatch all of the topper shades over all of the darkest shades. So I'm going to show you that a bit closer up as well so you can see how they look layered. They actually look quite similar because unless you do it a lot more sheerly than I've done here, the shift is actually quite prominent, that it does overtake most of the base colors. So it's interesting, but yeah, let's do it. Just gonna say, this is like my perfect smoky eye colors. I can't go too cool tone with smoky eyes. They make me look a little bit hollow. So this sort of browny color that's got a little bit of warmth to it. I've also got like a warm brown on my tight line and waterline, which makes it look a little bit more burgundy. But it's just like the most beautiful smoky eye color. I would totally wear this. I think it's gorgeous, but let's make it a bit more shimmery. So I've got a bit of the topper shade, and I just want to sort of layer that on top to see the effect that it gives. It's got this beautiful sort of like vibrant orange twinkle. It's very pretty. And again, you can sort of use this base color. I'm tempted to actually do it where I put a different color on so we have like a different effect, but I won't because I've got to finish this using this row. But so you can really brighten the look with the toppers. With this metallic shade, I'm just going to put it on as well because I need to use it. This is gorgeous. It has that sort of orange shift to it, so I feel like you don't need both. But it actually is a bit of a duochrome. So what I'm seeing, okay, catching the light, it's that orange, but in some lights I can see a little bit more gold. So it is a bit of a duochrome, which I think is stunning. It's gorgeous. You can see the orange a little bit better there. I'm just going to put a little bit of the topper just on the lower lash line. Oh, it's so vibrant. Interestingly, I do find that these two shades have the same sort of color shift. One just has more of a sort of base color to it. The other one has that sort of translucent color, but they both give that sort of orange flash to them, but they're both very pretty. So you can see the toppers are quite strong, so they do overtake the base color quite a lot. When you sort of have them in the shadow, you can see slight differences between the few, and the purple is actually the darkest. So if you want to go really dark look, that plummy purple is gorgeous. But there we go, that's what they look like. So those are the 4 looks using the different columns and the color stories. But I will have some looks on the screen. I have tried just like an all matte, really nude look. I have tried more subtle looks. I have tried to mix the colors. So I really love the idea of mixing sort of an earthy green with a mauve. I love the idea that you can mix sort of the cool and the warm. So these do work across color stories as well. It's almost one of those palettes where you can just pick random colors and they do work really well together because they are all of that sort of more basic sort of nude vibe. So I think they pair really beautifully. I want to compare this palette to some of the past palettes because I know there's been a few questions. So now let's get on to some swatch comparisons. I've got some shimmer comparisons here. So that middle row is the Barely Basic palette. So we have the topper shades and the more metallic sort of sparkly shades. Then on the top row here, we have the Rich Romantic palette. Now I have roughly sort of swatched them alongside colors that are sort of similar. This one looks really different. On the camera at the moment, it looks like it's orange, but in my light, it looks a little bit more green, which is why I swatched it compared to the green. They do have a dark olive that is not similar to anything else. Then I've compared some sort of light colors. You do have a topper shade here that shifts orange, but you can see it's a different consistency. Like this is a lot, I don't know, it's like more finely milled. It's a little bit more sheer. I do have a dark purple here. I've just chucked it here but also in my light, it looks a little bit green. This one here as well looks a little bit more yellow in your light, but in my light, it looks like aqua. So a lot of these ones are more sort of transformative and a lot more subtle. The bottom row is the Nearly Natural palette. You can see I've sort of semi again compared color to color. There are some sort of similarities, mainly with texture. These do look similar, but in my light, this looks gold and this looks the copper. So this one has a duochrome to it. That's the one I'm currently wearing. There are some similarities. Probably these two are the most similar. The greens are slightly similar. One's a little bit more warm, one's a little bit more cool. But yeah, look, do you need all of these? Probably not. There's no exact dupes. But there are some similarities in finishes and sort of colors. Now for the mattes, you can see that the new palette has a lot of mattes. That is compared to all of the mattes in the Nearly Natural palette, which compared to it, there were so many gaps. So there are some similar colors. So it's almost like a more rosy mauve, a more warm plum. This is a lot more purple. These two I always thought were too similar, and they look a little bit like the orange one, just maybe a little bit more brown, I guess. Probably the closest would be the dark brown and the dark brown, but that's totally fine. The greens are sort of similar as well, slightly different. And I thought I'd also compare it to the Melt Gemini palette. So if you do love the matte greens from that palette like I do, they are very similar. I think this one's a little bit more green, but I feel like this formula is a little bit nicer. This is very, very chalky and sort of flaky. And there's really no dupes from the Rich Romantic palette, so I didn't bother putting that here. But you can see the Barely Basic has so many more mattes. It's a really good matte heavy palette. Okay, so overall, what do I think about this palette? I'm going to say my initial thoughts are I think this is a really fantastic palette. If you like the quality of indie brands, you like the sort of sparkly, interesting finishes, some of the sort of color shifty or the sort of transformative nature, but you want a palette that you can use every single day. I think this has nailed it. I think it's gorgeous. I love the layout of this palette. I really like how organized it is with the toppers, the sort of sparkly metallics, and then you have the mattes that go from lighter to darker. You've got the column, so you can stick with that, or you can jump around. Like you can totally do whatever you want. I think it's a really well designed palette. I think if you're a matte lover, you're going to really appreciate the amount of mattes in here, because I do feel like compared to some of their past more nude palettes, that this has a lot more mattes. I have to say though, on the flip side, if you are a shimmer lover like me, I would have liked to have seen maybe one more row of shimmers. It's a very foolproof palette. This could go from beginners through to like makeup artists. Anyone can use this. The quality is really, really lovely. I haven't had any issue with the quality of these. I find that I tend to use these by patting them on my lid first just to get the intensity, and then I'll use a brush to sort of blend it out. I haven't had any fallout issues. The mattes apply really nicely. They blend really nicely. If you're worried about shadows clinging or skipping to like a stickier base, I really like the addition of this shade just so you can set your crease a little bit and then you can sort of blend the other shades into it. I think it's very, very smart. I think that this is not criticism, but it's just commentary. I do think that on me, this palette looks warmer than how it applies. So what I mean by that is, particularly with the mattes, I find that these look quite sort of almost chocolate brown on me. These start to look quite grey on me. So this does lean sort of cooler when I apply it than what it looks like in the pan. That may be different if you've got really, really cool toned skin. These might look really warm on you. But to me, this is more of a neutral leaning palette. With the mattes, I do have to say, I feel like some of them are a little bit, I don't want to say redundant, but they blend in too much that they look quite similar. I think I'm mainly looking at this row here because when I was wearing them today, I felt like I could put that in the crease and blend it all over the eye, deepen it with this, and then where it meets kind of looks like this. So people could argue that with the green as well. So I do feel like maybe they should have gone a little bit lighter on this row, but I understand by doing that it can exclude people with deeper skin tone. So I get it. It's not perfect for me. The color stories, the vibe of it is perfect, but there's little tiny tweaks that I would have done if it was my own palette. But I think it's such a lovely palette. The good thing I like about this palette as well is that if you missed out on the Nearly Natural, you can get a similar vibe because particularly this row has that same sort of twinkly formula. Some of these are a little bit more color shifty, so they're a little bit more interesting. But you have the sort of quality, you have the same vibe that you can get from this palette, but at the same time it doesn't double up, so you can have them both. If you want this palette but with a little bit more depth and a little bit more dimension to it, I feel like that's what this is. I can see this being like a volume 1, 2 and 3. I would love to see them do like a warmer version and a cooler version. So if they get really into the grays, really get into almost like I don't know, bluey, purpley grays with like dusty pinks would be really cool. And then if you went warmer and you went like sandy colors, punchier oranges, because I find that this looks very orange, but it's more the shimmers that carry the orange. For me, this is more brown applying, which I don't hate because I love brown, but you could definitely go warmer, more red. I reckon this format is fantastic. The quality is great. And yeah, you could totally expand on this range, which would be great. So I love this. I think it's fantastic. I definitely think it's a palette that I'm going to keep out and use regularly, which is great. Oh, I did also use this with different primers. I found that with the pastel palette that they released last, I did have some issues with creasing. I have less issues with creasing this time around. I did find that with one of the primers I was using at like the 12-hour mark, there was slight creasing, but it's at the 12-hour mark. It's fine. I feel like once you've reached like the 10, 11, 12-hour mark, like all my makeup goes to shit anyway. It's totally fine. But everything held on really well. And with particularly the NARS eyeshadow primer, I found that there was like no budging. And at the end of the day, everything looked still gorgeous. So really beautiful palette. Probably my favorite palette of the year. I know it's early to call, but I'm not interested in other palettes. I really like this though. So this palette is technically launching this weekend, but last weekend they opened it up for pre-orders. So if you did want to buy this, use my discount code, you get 10% off. It's on the screen, CAT, K-A-T. You don't have to, but save yourself some money. And they also were supposed to release this with some lipsticks, lip liners, and liquid blushes. Now I have done a review on all of those. I love them. The liquid blushes, this is one that I'm wearing today. It is stunning. They blend so well. This is a shade Sunny. I think they are such great formulas of liquid blushes. So I will link my review of those down below. I'm also wearing one of their lipsticks. This is in the shade Modest. They have lip liners as well. And this is such a creamy, smooth, beautiful. They've got 3 shades and like matching lip liners. So all nudes. So they were supposed to release these alongside this and have a full collection, which would have worked perfectly. But because of the palette being held up, I think they released these early. So I recommend checking out my reviews where I talk about these. Both formulas I love, particularly these. These I love, 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 love. I find that they don't wear on my skin all day, but they are such a dream to apply. They don't lift my makeup. I've got oily skin that I really need to sort of set my matte makeup, and this just adds a bit of glow and color. The shade Poppy, which is red, is it's so good. Anyway, check out those as well. There they are available. Another thing that they're releasing this weekend is they're bringing back the Nocturnal palette. Now I did do a full review on that. They're bringing it out in the smaller pan sizes, not the big full size pan. So if you missed out on that palette and you want to have a bit more color, if nude isn't really your thing, but you want a bit more color, That is a very colourful palette, and I'll link all my reviews down below. So big congratulations to the team at Glaminatrix for releasing a really cool palette. I think this is such a practical palette and it's going to get a lot of love from a lot of people. So well done, and a huge thank you for sending it to me to review. It's been a very fun week and I love it. Links and details will be in the description box. I will see you in the next one. Have a great day, and a big thank you to my members for supporting my channel. Mwah! See ya.